Mac ran a hand along the dusty banister. The mansion creaked around him, like a symphony of age and neglect. Shadows stretched from every corner, deepening in the fading light. He was alone, as always. The silence was a living thing, pressing in on him. It wasn't a comfortable silence, it hummed, vibrated with a low frequency that set his teeth on edge. He wandered through the empty halls, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Each room was a portrait of decay. Faded grandeur clung to the tattered velvet curtains and the cracked, gilded mirrors. He stopped in the doorway of the grand ballroom. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight piercing the gloom. A chill ran down his spine. It was more than the cold air, a prickling awareness as if something watched him from the shadows. He shook off the feeling and continued his exploration, drawn deeper into the mansion's heart. The basement door groaned open, revealing a maw of impenetrable darkness. He hesitated, then stepped inside. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something metallic and ancient. The single bare bulb cast long, distorted shadows. Mac ran his hand along the damp stone wall, his fingers brushing cobwebs and grime. He navigated through a labyrinth of forgotten furniture and discarded treasures, each piece whispering tales of a bygone era. His heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat against the oppressive silence. Then he saw it. In the far corner, nestled amongst a pile of rusted tools and broken toys, sat a helmet. Not a knight's helmet, not a soldier's. This was something different, something other. It was crafted from a strange, dark metal, etched with faded symbols he didn't recognize. Wires snaked out from beneath its rim like veins pulsing with a life of their own. Tarnished brass fixtures adorned its surface, catching the dim light. He reached out, his fingers tracing the cold, unforgiving metal. A low hum resonated from within, barely audible above the static whisper that filled the air. The helmet pulsed faintly beneath his touch, as if breathing. He felt a strange pull, a compulsion to see what lay beyond the visor. He lifted the helmet. It was surprisingly light. He hesitated, a flicker of unease crawling up his spine. But curiosity, like a siren's call, drowned out the warning whispers in his mind. He brought the helmet down over his head. The world dissolved into static. A rush of sound, a cacophony of whispers and screams, assaulted his senses. He cried out, dropping the helmet to the floor. It clattered against the concrete, the sound oddly muted, distant. He clutched at his head, his ears ringing. The whispers lingered, fading echoes of something vast and unknowable. He stared at the helmet, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. It lay there, inert, but he could have sworn he saw a faint glow emanating from within its depths. He reached for it again, drawn back to its strange allure. He told himself it was just a trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by the darkness and the isolation. He told himself he was in control. But a part of him, a small, insidious voice in the back of his mind, whispered otherwise. He began to wear the helmet more often. At first it was just for short periods. He would sit in the darkness of his study, the helmet resting on his head like a metal crown. He would close his eyes and listen. To the static, yes, but also to the voices. They were clearer now, closer. Some whispered in languages he didn't understand, others in tongues he couldn't even begin to comprehend. He started to see things too, flickers in the corner of his vision, shadows that moved when he wasn't looking. Faces, grotesque and distorted, peering at him from the darkness. He would wake in the night, drenched in a cold sweat, the feeling of invisible eyes watching him linger long after he had opened his own. He knew he should stop. He knew it was changing him, twisting his thoughts, unraveling the fabric of his sanity, but he couldn't. The helmet called to him, a siren song of forbidden knowledge and cosmic horror. It whispered promises of power, of understanding, of a connection to something beyond human comprehension. And he, lost and alone in the vastness of his crumbling mansion, was all too eager to listen. The line between his thoughts and the voices blurred. He found himself speaking words he didn't understand. his tongue moving with an alien familiarity. Sometimes he would forget simple things, his own name, the date, or even why he had walked into a room. His reflection in the mirror became a stranger, his eyes vacant and distant, his features shifting, rearranging themselves into something other. People began to notice. Old friends would call, their voices laced with concern, asking if he was all right. He would hear their questions before they spoke them, his responses automatic, devoid of his usual warmth and humor. He pushed them away, withdrawing further into the isolation of the mansion and the cold embrace of the helmet. He was losing himself, and yeah, he knew that. But a part of him, a part that no longer sounded entirely like his own, rejoiced in the feeling. It was a terrifying, exhilarating surrender, the slow, inexorable erosion of his identity, replaced by something ancient and vast and utterly inhuman. He didn't know how long he had been locked in his study. Days, weeks. Time had lost all meaning, dissolving into a swirling vortex of static and whispers. He sat on the floor, his back against the cold stone wall, the helmet fused to his skull. He had tried to take it off countless times, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if it had become a part of him, its metal tendrils burrowing into his flesh, its wires intertwining with his nerves. The room was no longer a room. The walls pulsed and breathed, their surfaces shifting, transforming into grotesque landscapes of flesh and metal. The air crackled with energy, alive with the hum of 1,000 alien voices. His body felt alien too, heavy, yet strangely weightless, a vessel for something he couldn't begin to comprehend. He was trapped, not just within the mansion, but within his own mind. His thoughts were no longer his own. They were fragments of something else, something ancient and powerful and utterly indifferent to his terror. He screamed, a raw, primal sound that echoed through the endless corridors of his fractured consciousness. But the only reply was the cacophony of the voices, growing louder, closer, until they drowned out the last vestiges of his own terrified screams. His sense of self fractured, splintered. He was no longer Mac. He was a vessel, a conduit, a broken instrument upon which something vast and unknowable played its discordant symphony. The room twisted around him, a kaleidoscope of impossible angles and shifting perspectives. He was everywhere and nowhere, his identity scattered across the tapestry of a million alien minds. He felt a pressure building inside his skull, a blinding white light expanding behind his eyes. He tried to scream again, but no sound escaped his lips. He was beyond language, beyond thought, beyond even the primal instinct for self-preservation. There was only the light and the voices and the overwhelming, suffocating presence of something other. Then, silence. The light faded. The voices receded, whispers echoing into the void. The pressure in his skull abated, leaving behind a throbbing ache. He blinked, his vision slowly returning. The room was back to its normal dimensions, the walls solid and still. He looked down at his hands. They were his hands, his real hands. He could feel the warmth of his own blood pulsing beneath his skin. The helmet lay on the floor beside him, empty, inert. Relief flooded through him, so intense it was almost painful. He had escaped. He was free. Then he heard it. A voice. His voice. Free? The voice echoed through the room, tinged with amusement. Oh, Mac, we are never truly free. The voice was no longer his own. He scrambled back, his blood turning to ice in his veins. He stared at the helmet, his breath catching in his throat. It lay there, cold and lifeless, yet he could feel its presence, insidious and all-consuming, wrapped around his mind like a shroud. He was right, he had escaped, but something else had taken his place.